Hello. I've been thinking for a while, how do I get my message out? I've worked with families for a long time and really helped them to thrive and flourish. And I now have a resource as well that I can use to help with emotional health in families. And I have been using it, and it really works. My message is transforming the world one family at a time. So I want to tell you a story about how this could really work. I've got a friend called Claire, and one day she wanted to think about what was happening in her life and in her world. And she took some time out and she went to the beach. She left her children and her husband happily at home. And while she was on the beach, she watched some children playing. Now these were local kids, and they were really getting into the swing of doing their own thing. But some of it was interfering with the enjoyment of other people on the beach. I think you've seen that scene before. So I just want to talk through how Claire used her knowledge of innate needs and innate resources to work out what she was seeing before her eyes. So I'm going to use this resource pack. This is called the innate cards. And these blue cards I'm going to put out on the table represent each one of our innate needs. Every human being wants these needs to be met and strives in any way it can to get these needs met. So first of all, we have food and drink. And Claire knew that her children ate and drank healthily, mostly healthily, and a bit intermittently, but overall they ate and drank well. The children on the beach were sharing food too, in their group, in their tribe, in their gang. Claire's children moved and enjoyed exercise. They enjoyed cycling, dancing, running, chasing each other, climbing trees, all sorts of things. And she could see that the children on the beach equally enjoyed movement and free movement of their bodies. Claire's children slept well. They loved that bedtime routine and that snuggling down in a nice cosy bed and having a good night's sleep. Claire had no idea whether the children on the beach slept well. She knew that some areas of town it was really noisy through the night and quite difficult at times. Claire knew her children felt safe. She knew they felt protected and they were safe in their environment. And while these children were on the beach, they seemed quite safe in their little gang. But there were people on the edge, not involved with the group, who maybe weren't feeling quite so safe, and they were moving away from these children. Claire knew that her children loved attention, as do we all. Quite often they got attention in really good ways, but sometimes they would play up to get more and more attention. And Claire could also see this panning out in front of her, with the children in the gang vying for the most attention. The little ones using their little child ways of getting attention, and the bigger children using their big authoritarian ways of getting attention. Claire knew that her children felt recognised and completely connected emotionally to the family. They felt accepted totally for who they were. And as Claire watched the children on the beach, she could see the way that they were changing their behaviour in order to be accepted within the group for who they were. And the group was getting a little bit more disruptive. Claire knew that her children liked to control and liked to make choices. And as they grew older, they were allowed to make more and more choices. And occasionally they made choices that Claire didn't believe would work for them. But she allowed them to make those choices anyway. And as she saw the children throwing stones on the beach and drinking, she was not sure that they were making the best choices for them right there. Claire recognised that her children loved to achieve things and liked to be recognised for what they achieved. And when they said, "Look what I've done, Mummy," they loved to be recognised for that. And she saw the children on the beach, throwing bigger stones, kicking tins, breaking bottles, knowing that they were stretching themselves to achieve more and more. Claire's children like to be recognised for who they are, respected, to have some status within the family and amongst their friendship groups. And Claire could see that respect was a huge thing for the kids on the beach. But sometimes they were respected for being cheekier or ruder to other people on the beach. Or they were respected for winning fights. Claire wasn't sure that that was the right way that they should be going, but didn't feel that there was anything she could do right now. Claire's children were part of a community of family at school and in friendship groups, with people of different ages, but a lot of community amongst their little friends. And the community, the tribe, the gang on the beach was clearly important to each of the members. Claire's children had meaning and purpose. They were always asking about the world and about the things that they saw. And they really liked to be stretched and to go with ideas and understand and believe in all sorts of different things. The children on the beach seemed to see that all their meaning and purpose was gathered within that tribe, that was their meaning of being, to be part of that gang. Claire's children loved time to be private, to think their own thoughts. And Claire did see one child on the beach just step away from the group for a moment and watch the sea, and was thinking his own thoughts. And then Claire went to think what were her resources, and the resources of every human. She knew that we were all capable of thinking rationally, of making lists and making plans. And she knew that was helpful for her, for herself and for her children. She knew that she had a great imagination, that she could create all sorts of ideas, and that was often the start of wonderful things. She also knew, and she saw it in her children, that they imagined the most terrible disasters and catastrophes that could happen, and were often quite distraught when they used their imagination to the full, but sometimes in awe of what they could be capable of. Claire used her memory. She used it a lot when bringing up the children, to remember ways that worked and ways that didn't work when she came across these incidents before. Claire knew that she could match patterns. If something was like something else, then the response could be the same or different. It was a pattern. The ability to know through stories, through metaphor, and to understand the world because something is like something else, was such a strong pattern. Claire had great skills in rapport, and she was able to not only ask a friend what their view was on a subject, but sometimes she was even able to think what that friend would say without even asking them. To be able to read somebody else and understand where they were about is such a wonderful human resource. And Claire knew sometimes that dreaming was the only way forward. If you really couldn't solve a problem, work something out, make a plan, or imagine how it could be different, the only way to do it was to sleep on it, and sometimes waking in the morning, knowing what the answer is. Claire also knew how she used her emotions to help drive herself forward and to drive her children forward. The positive emotions, the excitement, the happiness, and the negative emotions, the anger and the frustration. And knowing how to take control of those emotions when they weren't working for her and teaching her children to do the same thing was a great skill because emotions drive us forwards, but they also stop us in our tracks. And more importantly, high emotions can make us functionally stupid. If you're really excited or madly in love, do you always think straight? If you're angry, you're always right, never wrong, and there are no grey areas. So managing emotions is so important. And the last resource we have innately within us is our ability to observe ourselves, to be able to be mindful of what's happening for us and for others around us. And Claire could see how her children used all those resources quite well in order to get their needs met. Sometimes, especially when they were tiny, they used emotions a huge amount in order to get their needs met. But as they grew, they learned to understand that through using memory or rational thinking or imagination, they could also get their needs met in healthy ways. And as Claire drew back from the disruptive gang on the beach, who were more and more upsetting the other people on the beach, she thought about communities in the world and how people are trying just desperately to get their needs met. And if you live in a place where there's no food and drink, you can't move freely, you get little sleep, you don't feel safe, you can't give and receive attention in a healthy way, your emotional connections are being severed, that you have no control, no sense of achievement, you're not recognised for who you are and your skills and talents, that you're not part of a community because it's disintegrating. There is little meaning and purpose in life, and there is no privacy. No wonder you'd be stressed, anxious, angry. And sometimes clinging on to the only thing that you can cling on to, meaning and purpose, your belief systems, feels like it's the only thing that you can hold on to. And Claire thought about the leaders, the people who are making decisions for communities and globally, and thought about how they use their rational thinking. Sometimes being rational, you can make clear decisions, but if you're not using your other resources, it's probably not the wisest decision. So to be able to use imagination well, to imagine a world where people can get on with each other, to remember ways that have worked and haven't worked when there's been conflict and disruption, to use pattern matching to make different patterns if the pattern that you're using right now isn't working, to be able to understand and to walk a mile in somebody else's moccasins using rapport, to be able to dream and to sleep and to wake and make a clear decision the next day, to manage emotions without gearing up the emotions of everybody around you is a very wise and valuable lesson. And to be able to get into your observing self, to be able to see what you're doing and how that affects yourself and the world around you is such a vital resource we need to be in tune with. So Claire was able to think from herself to her family, to her local community, to the world, how, if we work together, we can transform the world, one family at a time. Thank you.